We now welcome in very special guest. He is former Magic coach, Stan Van Gundy. Coach, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Coach, what'd you used to wear the first day of school?
You know, as you were saying that, I'm so old I can't even remember.
Oh, come on.
No, I don't remember. I do remember the Chuck Taylors, though. Yeah, those were great. You know, you had the choice of colors and the whole thing. Those were the best.
Now, did you wear the black ones or the white ones?
No, black, white, and when I was in high school, we had our school colors were blue and gold. So we had gold for home games and blue on the road. So you had a lot of options with the Chuck Taylors.
What'd you have on your lunchbox, Coach?
See, I don't remember that. I remember taking the brown bag. I don't remember back to the lunchbox days.
That's you, just a brown bag in it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think I did have a lunchbox, in elementary school, but I don't remember. That's a long, long time ago.
Coach, what have you been doing for fun? You went to Alaska, right?
Yeah, I went on family vacation to Alaska. Tremendous. Went to the baseball all-star game and home run derby with my son earlier in the summer. Been up to Montreal. Just dropped my daughter back down at school at the University of Miami yesterday. So I've been busy.
Did you take the cruise in Alaska?
No. We just went up and stayed at a couple of lodges, pretty remote places. You could only get to them by seaplane or helicopter or boat, and spent the week doing some things in the outdoors. Beautiful, beautiful state. Had a great time.
Coach, you've always been one who's kind of said, "Hey, NBA players and coaches live sort of in a fantasy world." I've always wanted to ask an NBA coach or a player this question: when you get fired from someplace and somebody gives you a check for $4 million not to coach anymore, obviously you want to coach, but that's got to feel pretty good, doesn't it? For us regular working schlubs, that would be like a dream.
Yeah, that's absolutely. That is a highly, highly paid vacation. So, you're certainly not going to hear me out complaining. That's for sure.
Coach, are you going to do TV work?
Well, probably. I mean, I'm talking to people about it now, but probably going to do some of that. Need something to do to keep busy, even though there's money coming in, and I'm old by all other measures. I'm still too young to be sitting around doing nothing.
When do you plan on coaching again?
I'd like to. It's a matter of timing and when, but I certainly I'm missing it right now. I mean, this would be the time where we'd be, back in the office full time and really, going through the playbook and talking about things for the season and gearing up to having all the players back in town after Labor Day, all of those things, and they start running through my mind. I think that, when you've been at it for a long time, you sort of have a clock in your mind and, up until now, nothing's really been different. I mean, the off season, you get some time off and the whole thing, but especially as the kids start heading back to school, you're back up to full speed, and so it's different, and I am missing it, and there's a big part of me that would like to coach again, but I've got 2 in high school and 1 in the 8th grade, plus my daughter in college, and so the timing would have to be right.
If you could coach this year, would you?
Well, if I could have coached here this year, I would have. Yeah, I would have loved to, but I wasn't going to pick everybody up and move them. And I, even though I got a couple of phone calls, I wasn't going to jump back in a couple of months after everything went down. I mean, I needed a little bit of time. So, but if I could have coached here this year, sure, I would have loved to.
Coach, if you were the coach of the Magic, would you have pushed for buying them or the draft picks?
Well, you know what? Look, here's the thing with coaches, and I think we're all pretty much the same. You want to win, and you want to win the next day and the next game. and so I would have definitely, had we had to trade Dwight, would have rather had, guys that could help us right now in return. But I don't say that as that they're doing anything wrong. I think a general manager's got to sit back and determine that. And that's why I've always said, at least from my perspective, I would never want both jobs. And I said that to Otis several times, because general managers got to weigh both the present and the future. As a coach, I never had to do that, and I'm glad that I didn't. It was all about trying to win now, and that's all I wanted to do.
Talking to former Magic coach Stan Van Gundy. Coach, are the Lakers with Dwight now the favorite to win the NBA championship?
I don't know, but I think they're the favorite to win the West. I would say they and the Heat are the favorites right now. I'd put them ahead of Oklahoma City with one caveat, and that being, you've got Dwight coming off of back surgery, and then their other three best players are all a little bit older. So age and health could prevent them from doing that. But if they're healthy and all those guys are able to play a full season, then I think they're the best team in the West. I think Steve Nash will help their offense a great deal, and I think Dwight will help their defense and rebounding a great deal. I think their pieces fit together very, very well, and I think Mike Brown's an outstanding coach. I don't see why they shouldn't at least be right there to win the West, and I think probably the favorite to do so.
Stan, I want to ask you this because it was one of the most surreal scenes I've ever covered as a sports writer. Everybody remembers the day when you told the media that Dwight had gone to management to try to get you fired. What were you thinking when Dwight walked into the middle of that? I mean, nobody expected that. What were you?
That was strange, and obviously, sort of made things worse. Other than just answering the question, but clearly he didn't have any idea what had just been said, and so it developed into a pretty awkward situation.
Do you think that cost you your job or not?
Well, I certainly think that me coming out and answering that question honestly had probably something to do with it at the very least. But then I think there were some things that, had gone before and after that probably contributed to it also. So, it was more than one thing, but certainly I think that was part of it, yeah.
Stan, when that happened, I sort of perceived it as, hey, Stan is uncloaking Dwight Howard here, but in listening to some of your other interviews since then, it seems like that's really wasn't your intention, or you blame management more than Dwight, right?
Yeah. Look, Dwight, I don't, and I've said this. I said it all year to my staff and talking and things. When we would talk about it, as far as Dwight going to management and asking for a new coach, that's probably going to happen, several times this year in the NBA and in every other sport. And so that's nothing that is out of the ordinary. And then it's up to management how they handle that situation, So I didn't really have a problem with that part. I mean, Dwight and I had some other things that we talked about, that he wasn't happy with, that I wasn't happy with. But as far as that demand, I didn't really have a problem with that. The way it was handled afterwards and inside our organization was not good.
Stan, who in management told you that Dwight wanted you fired?
You know what? Basically everybody that was above me, and I've said that before. I mean, to the top levels, and ownership has has told that to people in the media, at least one person at your paper. So it's not, there's not a, in my mind, there's no real dispute that happened, that demand was made. I mean, there's certainly people who have tried to run from it and cloak it in different ways, but I don't think that there's many people out there that seriously doubt that happened.
Hey, Stan, in hindsight, would you guys have been better off trading Dwight last year at the before the season or at the deadline? I mean, it seems like that could have saved a lot of pain and anguish to the franchise.
Well, I think there's two answers to that. I think number one, certainly it would have saved some pain and anguish, maybe, but I've said this in regard to my relationship with Dwight and everything else. I guess I was under the impression that our goal was not to necessarily save pain and anguish or to see how much we could like each other. I thought our goal was to win. So anytime you trade Dwight, you're going to have less a chance of winning. So that's one answer. The second answer is, would you have been better off trading him earlier? There's various times where you probably would get different values for trading somebody like Dwight. And so at different times, if you were inevitably going to have to trade Dwight, you might have been able to pick up more value. And I think Otis probably saw the situation ending the way that it did long before anyone else. And so he could probably comment better than I could, and he won't, but he could probably comment better than I could on when the best timing would have been. But he saw this whole thing coming long before last season ever started. So going back, over a year, probably into the end of the previous season, and I think would have dealt with it differently, but it didn't end up ultimately being his choice. So it's you are where you are now.
You guys had a deal, though, right? Wasn't there a deal supposedly way back when?
I mean, again, Otis, the one, would know better, but yeah, there were. I would be able to talk specifically, but I mean, he was prepared at basically any time that was the decision of the organization. I mean, he had done his work and was ready at any time. I mean, so yeah, there were various times that it could have happened, and he was ready at all of those times and had been in contact with teams and knew what was out there and certainly had ideas on what he thought would have been best.
Talking to former Magic coach Stan Van Gundy. Stan, what exactly did management do wrong, and how did management change when Vanderwide left and Alex Martins took over? Is there anything that changed? Or
Well, a lot changed just in the makeup of our organization, and without getting into opinions on things. I mean, what changed basically is when Bob was there. It was sort of structured that Otis was on the basketball side and Alex was on the business side, and obviously very busy with building the arena. And then Bob, they both reported to Bob, but when Bob left, it really, became Alex over everything. And so, on the basketball side, well, I still reported to Otis, but Otis had to report to Alex. So Alex, who had just been on the business side, then got involved on the basketball side.
Is there anything that, I don't know, that bothers you? I mean, I've heard you say that management did some things wrong. Is there anything specifically?
Well, there were a lot of things, but what happened, I mean, to sum it up, and look, I think that and I have with both the players and in the media. I'll take my share of the blame, and in my mind, management certainly needs to take theirs. We had developed, I think, over the years, a very good culture and atmosphere around our team. It was team first. It was about hard work and preparation, and I thought that we did things the right way. Otis and I were on the same page in terms of the culture we wanted to create and everything else. And the Dwight thing was so big, and it should have been in one way. I mean, this is your franchise player and the whole thing, but in an effort, I guess, to make Dwight happy and everything else, we compromised a lot of the culture and values that we had before, and I think that's always a mistake. I think that, once you compromise those things, everything's going to go south, and that's exactly what happened to our organization, is that we compromised those things. It was no longer a team first thing. It was no longer about trying to win games and what was best for the organization, and it was inevitable that things would not go as well.
Last couple things, Stan. Do you when Alex Martins made the coaching change, he was up at the podium. He said he wanted a coach who related to players better. Did that hurt you? And do you think that reputation could hurt you in getting another job?
First of all, I think that, it's always hard. There's only 30 of these jobs. It's hard to get them. And I'm certainly not arrogant enough to think that I can definitely have one whenever I want one. But I do think that there'll continue to be interest. I think that Alex's comment hurt me. No, I just – it's a typical lack of understanding from someone who has no sports knowledge, who's never coached, who's never played, who's never been in a locker room. It's a naivete that about what relating to players is all about. Bill Musselman once said, if you want to know how the player-coach relationships are, watch the team play. See, this isn't it's different from a family relationship, Mike. This isn't, this is a business relationship. Coaching and players, it's a business relationship designed to get a result. And so that's what it should be judged on. And there are times, many times maybe, where players and coaches are going to not like what the other one is doing. It's not going to be a comfortable relationship. You can't always be comfortable and accomplish a lot. And I think, again, I'll stand on the relationships we had with our players based on the results that we got on the floor, and that's all that counts. I mean, it's not how many players are going to say they like me or any of those things. It's what happens and how they play. And I think over the 5 years, I think the general consensus, certainly not everybody, but the general consensus would be throughout the league that our teams were well prepared, played very, very hard, played very well together, and got a pretty good deal out of our potential. So those things are all direct results of how you coach your players and how you relate to your players. And not everyone's going to be happy all of the time. And I think Alex's comment is, based on the fact that, Dwight and maybe others didn't like me and thinking somehow that that's important.
Stan, last thing, a lot of Magic fans are worried that because of the migration of superstars to the bigger markets, that Orlando, which isn't exactly a marquee, glitzy market, is not going to be able to lure any free agents or big-name free agents. Do you see that as a problem?
Well, I think they could lure free agents. Look, free agency comes down to the money, first of all. I mean, it comes down to money. I mean, this isn't a college recruiting situation, though that a lot of times comes down to money too. But this is money. I mean, and so if you've got more money than somebody else, you're going to get the guy. Now, if it's equal, there may be other factors, but I think Orlando is a desirable location. The league has changed. Now it's all about, it used to be the stars wanted to sort of have their own team. They certainly wanted good players around them, but now everything's changed. I think it started with the Celtics, bringing Garnett, Pierce, and Allen together, and everybody saw that and decided, look, I mean, this is the only way we're going to win. And so I think sometimes the players get sort of chastised for that, but if you're a LeBron James and you're looking at it, you might want to win it in Cleveland. You might want to lead your own franchise. Same with Dwight Howard, but you're looking around and Chris Paul, I think, went through the same thing. You're looking around and you see Boston and you're saying, I'm not going to be able to do this alone. I got to find a way somehow where I can get with a couple of other true stars, not just good players, but true stars. And so then LeBron goes to Cleveland and Chris Paul takes off and goes to the Clippers, which isn't going to be enough for him, I don't think. And so if you're Dwight, you're looking around and saying, I got to get somewhere where there's more people somehow. Either they've got to come here, which if you don't have a way to do that, then you've got to go somewhere else. I think the interesting one coming up in the future is going to be Derrick Rose. I think Derrick Rose is a great representative of our league, and he's a great player. And he's got good players around him, very good players around him. But if they can't get another star there for him, is he eventually going to look around and say, hey, I've got to work this out on my own, and I've got to find this somehow to get somewhere else, so that I will have a chance to play with another star. The league has changed. But I think Orlando is fine as a destination. I think it'll be interesting to see what they do. Clearly right now they've decided that they didn't want to bring players back for Dwight, that they want to start all over and rebuild, and how much they use free agency as opposed to the draft will probably determine how quickly it turns around or if it's a 4 or 5 year thing.
He is former Magic coach Stan Van Gundy, soon to be on TV, right?
Well, I don't know I don't know if soon. I don't know when anything will come up. We're sort of just in talks right now.
But it won't be with your brother?
I don't think so. That has not.
That would be entertaining.
That has not come up in any talks.
Coach, we appreciate your time this morning.
Okay, thanks, Mike.